Hi. I've been feeling like making a little video for a while, so I'm gonna do it. I've been thinking about a topic that I could talk about for a while, and I haven't really landed on one to be honest, because I'm always kind of moving through shit and thinking about things differently and from different angles and stuff. So nothing ever really sticks for long enough to do a video on it. But with that being said, yeah, we'll see where it goes. Um, yeah, some updates. I got a haircut. I think it can look a lot different than it does now. But the thing is, I got the cut, and like I have this stuff that I can put in my hair, but I don't really know how to use it. So, like I put a little bit in it, and it gives it like maybe a little bit of shape. But like I need to get out like a blow dryer, and I need to specifically like do the stuff right, and then I need to like something like that. And that's um well, not something I've really done so far. So it's just like this, which is fine. Anything is way better than what I had before. That's for certain. So okay, let's see. What have I been up to lately? Lately, I've been on my work grind kind of. So I'm not like grinding things out at work, but I've been experiencing a lot of positive growth and direction in the realm of my work, and so that's pretty good. So the way I think that has been, that little journey for me has been largely a journey of improving my own self confidence, and also getting a glimpse at how the mechanisms of self confidence and self esteem work. So I started by not doing anything in my job really, but by taking care of my appearance and making sure I look a bit more put together, and doing some daily activities that blah blah blah. Basically, the question here, and the takeaway here is, when you think about somebody who you respect, what is it that makes somebody respectable? Because it turns out that the way that we construct our opinions of other people is the same way that we construct the opinions of ourselves. So if you look around and you think that people who whatever like dress better, take better care of themselves, maybe they exercise, maybe they shave more, maybe their hair isn't a mess, maybe they show up to work on time. Maybe they're very friendly. Maybe they're very smart. Maybe they think before they talk. Basically, you can get some insights into how you could raise your opinion of yourself. And if you can raise your opinion of yourself, then you start to trust yourself more. Self trust is very important because without knowing it, whenever you lack self trust, everything that you're taking in is going through this filter of like, well, am I sure? And, do I really get it and all that? Whereas if you start to develop some self confidence, then everything can kind of just go pop, pop, pop. You don't need to second guess things that are obvious. If you take out your calculator to do 23 plus 25, like, yeah, you need to be able to trust yourself, and you need to be able to execute on that trust. And another really important thing that taught me, and that's kind of been setting in for me, is that life is this very dynamic thing. There's no like one strategy you take, or one life you live, or one time you're measured, and that's it. It's this extremely dynamic thing at the core, and if you're wrong, you just change your strategy, which is pretty cool. Um, and I think this also has a lot of links to, say, the story of Jesus in the Bible. It's like okay, so all right, I'm glad we found something to talk about a little bit. Zoom out and dive into our story, starting from the First Testament, and it's like, you know, in Genesis, God needs to restart the world because of people's degenerate behavior, and then eventually Moses gets, and that happened. Does that happen twice? I know it happens with the covenant, and then also happens with Sodom and Gomorrah, whatever. At least in those places, not the world. The covenant was the worldwide, and then Sodom and Gomorrah was more localized. But anyway, there were repeatedly stories in the Old Testament that people were not acting correctly and appropriately. Moses receives the Ten Commandments, and he says, hey, follow these rules, you know? And then Jesus says later in the second, sorry, I'm jumping around, but Jesus says, you know, like, everything is permitted, but not everything is beneficial. And what that really means is, like, you know, there's any whatever is allowed is allowed. Whatever is not against the physical laws of reality is, like, doable. It's just a question of, like, is that something you should want to do? But anyway, so we get these 10 commandments from Mount Sinai, and we get all these other rules and stuff, and then, you know, my boy Jesus comes along, and he's like, all right, you guys are, like, taking this way too literally. It's not that literal. In fact, there is no one size fits all. The beauty and the terrible thing about life is that you can't ignore it. You can't close your eyes. You can't say, blah, 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 I'm not paying attention, because then it just grows in the background while you're unaware of it, and things get worse and worse for you until you can't ignore them anymore. And this is pretty shitty because you didn't even ask to be born. On the other hand, though, your actual experience of life is based on something right now, and whether or not you chose to be born has nothing to do with how you experience life, really. If you want to think that it does, you're allowed to do that. You're even allowed to do that. It's crazy, but it basically means is that there's room for improvement. You can do better than you are doing, and that can give you a more satisfying, beneficial life. And so here's another thing. Meaning comes through movement. If you're not moving, you're not making any progress, which, by the way, it really helps to move in the world whenever you believe in yourself, and whenever you think, yeah, I know what's up, and even if I don't know what's up, I can learn what's up, and I can find the appropriate answer, and then I can go out in the world, and I can do things, and I can update. If you have that confidence in yourself, then yeah, awesome, nice. Life is improvable. And that's the reason why I think it's nice and it's also terrible is because sometimes every now and then I'm just like, you know, everybody wants to bury their head in the sand and ostrich it out, ignore the problems of everything going on around them, while you just ignore everything and play video games or whatever you want to do. And that's like not very productive. So, but you know, it's comforting for the short term. It's not good for the long term. But you know, to hear the life is in a way best approached by clockwork oranging it out. You know, never take your eyes off of what's happening, or else you might miss something. I mean, it's yeah, sleep with one eye open, Be comfortable, but not too comfortable. It's an interesting thing that's I've kind of built into life. And I also think the dynamic nature of life has also brought in some more interesting, like, realizing that life is very dynamic has also brought with it a couple of interesting discoveries and kind of ways to re-look at things, in my opinion. And it's also connected a couple dots. So, for example, another thing that I've started to move towards, because I realized that life is dynamic, and not static is like the things about, Gödel's incompleteness theorem ring true. There's no one strategy that you can use that is just going to work for the rest of your life. That doesn't exist, and it never will. And similarly, there's no master set of axioms that are correct. Things are like, you just try things out and they work. Fundamentally, it's not that complicated. Um, and I mean, I'm sure there's more complication somewhere, but really, as far as like action goes, you just try things out and it works or it doesn't, and you update, you iterate, and it's very liberating, and it's freeing, and you also don't have to take yourself so seriously. You don't have to be like, I am the person who is doing this thing because I believe in it and whatever. It's like, well, I'm just trying this out. Like, I'm just a life entity who has spawned in here on planet Earth in the form of a human being, and I'm playing as best I can tell to the meta of the human being, and like that's it. Yeah, no, but anyway, I've definitely been getting a lot more good results in my work and in my personal life and in my mood from taking a more learning more about self-confidence, taking this more dynamic view, and just focusing more and thinking to myself, and another thing is, seeing where I respond to something emotionally rather than trying to lay it down logically in my head. So for example, if I get told that I'm not doing a good job at work or something, maybe previously I would be like, well, who cares? All this shit's artificial and blah 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 blah. I don't care. I'm just writing code. It's whatever. And these people are nobodies, and I'm a nobody, and it doesn't matter. Um, like that's fine. I can argue that if I want to, but the reality is that in my body and in my mind, the way I feel is like, no, it's a personal loss. I'm taking it personally. It's upsetting me. It makes me feel bad about myself, bad about things. It makes me feel shameful and like I should do better. So just listen to it. I found also, the more that you stop telling yourself strange stories, and the more you're open to things, and you're listening, and you're making your adjustments and feedback and stuff, and the more that you can actually just feel into what's going on, there's a certain kind of embodied intelligence that can arise as well, where you can look at something and immediately know how you feel about it and why and what everything is, and it's faster than words could ever be, and you just get it. I've personally been getting a lot of insight into the way that I operate, the way I project my own biases onto reality, and the way that I act or don't act accordingly, the meaning and messaging and things that I'm creating for myself unintentionally or intentionally, when I'm aware of those and when I'm not. And so that's also been a bit of an interesting little trip. I think whenever I integrated PI, I found, and I was pretty surprised to find that not only is there a life on the outside world, but there is also like an equivalently detailed and rich life going on within at the same time. And yeah, I still think that's true, but lately I've been realizing it even more, because I also see how your internal state affects the external state, and how the external state affects the internal state, and they're in this way inseparable. And another interesting little tidbit side thing. Holy fuck! I'm just like, I like my mouth is a fire hydrant hose thing. I'm just spewing all the thoughts. Um, but this is what life is like for me. So bear with me. Um, where was I? Oh man, I don't remember. That's tragic. Oh yeah, no. So this outside and inside, another question that comes up is like, well, which is more fundamental, right? And this is a big philosophy question, right? Idealism versus materialism, and and you can also, I've noticed, this question has popped up in so many other ways, right? It's like, what comes first, light or darkness? What comes first, matter or energy? What comes first, objects or the patterns that describe their motions, right? Because if you don't have the patterns that describe their motions, they stay motionless. And if you don't have anything at all, then how could there be anything to move and have patterns? And it's I've been thinking about this for a couple of months, and it's like, it's really the answer that I'm getting to is that these things arise together, um, irreducibly so, and it's a bit confusing to the causality seeking brain, because we're used to thinking A causes B, B causes C, C causes D. But in this case, it's just like these things pop up together. This thing pops up and it already has properties, or like something's been happening, and I don't know. It's some weird shit. I'm still working through it in some ways, but I find this pretty fascinating. Um. Oh yeah, another thing that actually with the whole, yeah, the dynamism of truth, or sorry, the dynamism of life, and like Gödel's incompleteness theorems and stuff, and that there's no master one strategy to life, and you need to keep your eyes open. Another thing that has come to my attention is that there is no that logic is purely for utility. And so this is something I've known intellectually for a while because I've had the experience, I had an undeniable experience where categorically, like, what I experienced was more true than anything else I had ever thought of. And that's because I wasn't thinking. It's because the immediate experience of a moment, the fact that anything is happening at all, is more primary than anything that comes after it, including words. And so pretty much you're just taking that, like, what starts, and you're learning from there, and then we put words on things. And oh yeah, also it's been kind of interesting because I've been thinking about CT, and CT. It's interesting because the way that we measure it is verbal. Um, we either need to write, or we need to be thinking, at the very least, or ideally we need to be talking, and that's only when the signals come out. And I'm starting to think that CT might actually only exist at the layer of verbal and conceptual thought. And I do think that there is a layer that is deeper than that, in which there's no such thing as CT, I guess, probably. That's just what it's looking like to me, my 2 cents. But oh yeah, ever since discovering the kind of, like, more hands-on discovering the lack of truth in thought itself, there's less pressure for it to be correct, right? Because, like, you just want to use it to understand or to affect change or something. And I think so it's also been kind of happening is for me is a little bit of a but this has also been going back and forth, I will say. Sometimes I'm a little bit more like, I don't know, I just got, like, patterns flashing in my brain, and, like, patterns between, like, two completely different contexts or sets of data coming in together, and, like, all this, like, yin and yang shit. Like, you just see the dualities and the patterns, it's visual and it's bodily, but it's not it's not very friendly to words. But it doesn't matter, because before I was under the presumption that unless I can put it precisely into a chain of causal words, then I don't have a case to make and I'm not justified in believing that. Now I understand that belief has nothing to do with truth, or little to do with truth. And it's all about utility, baby. So, if I just see some things like my brain is making shit up, but it works, yeah, I kind of lean into it. And it's this, I don't know, it's like in a way, it's more compressed. So, in these phases I find myself in, which is not really today. For example, today I'm doing pretty good with my words, but sometimes I find myself more. Well, it's not that my verbal ability decreases. It's that I don't know. Thought just becomes more abstracted in a way, and so. Oh shit! I lost my train of thought again. I'm talking way too much. Way too fast. So, I'm just going to show you my octopus. His name is Larry, and Joe got him for me from IKEA for my birthday, and I'm enjoying him. He can plop down like this, but he can also, like, he's pretty tall and you can stand him up. Yeah, and he's got little suction cups. Very cool. And I like him a lot. Okay. What are you doing? Okay. So anyway, I guess that's probably sufficient. I don't know. Maybe some people will find some parts of my incoherent ramblings to be somewhat interesting. If you are actually interested in any piece of anything I said, I can't elaborate a lot on it, and I can elaborate pretty coherently, probably. And I have been doing so over the course of the last few months. 1 month, maybe 2 months. And I've written a good amount about this whole self-confidence thing. I've written a good amount about, the way stuff, self-esteem operates and what you can practically do to get rid of that. I've wrote things about feeling emotions and how to get more in touch with your emotions, and especially your shame. The fact that there's no such thing as pure logic in a way, and that everything is kind of affectively motivated, and that nothing really needs to be true with a capital T. And you can, and where these things get mixed up a bit. Yeah, I've been doing a lot of writing and exploring of these things, and I'm having a good time. I'm having a good time. So I hope everyone else is having a good time too. And I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.